Well, Fiona Hayes, welcome back to the photographic life. Hot-footed, hot something straight from Photo London, and having given your all to this event.
Hi, Grant. Hi, listeners, viewers, and friends everywhere. I'm hot everything. It's just been a really, really intense few days in a very good way. Yeah, mostly at Photo London and also at Peckham 24.
Okay, so a very London-centric thing. Um, Before we start talking about Photo London, something I didn't go to, I have to say. There's something I want to talk about before we talk about the photography. It's one of the biggest problems I have with it, I've got to be honest, and that's the price of entry. Do you want to give us a little bit of background to that?
Okay, so the background to that is that the day ticket for Photo London this year is £32. That's your standard day ticket. Off peak, 20 quid, which is, I think, the last couple of hours of the day. A concession, i.e., students and so on, £24. £50 is a weekend pass. £38 a student weekend pass, which quite frankly strikes me as insane. £27 for a group day, £43 for a group weekend. The preview day, £200.
Wow. Okay, so
So
anybody hearing those figures is going to come to their own conclusion. I don't think we need to go into that in too much detail, other than we know that every single gallery showing there was also paying a large amount of money just to show. So this isn't an event that is reliant on visitor uh, payments to actually be staged.
yeah. So, first, full disclosure. First of all, I was extremely lucky to be given a VIP pass. So I managed to go there for every day. I couldn't go on Thursday. I was teaching and working all day Thursday, but I was there Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. I couldn't go on Sunday because I was going to Peckham. But I did make the most of my pass, and one thing I should mention is that it was incredibly sociable and social. I met so many of our mutual friends, people who listen to the podcast, people who are getting in touch with me, people who know you, um, going back years and very, very recently as well. And I have to say, I think an awful lot of people were going as plus ones and getting passes and being there because they knew someone who was able to bring them in. Because yeah, I mean the ticket prices are very expensive.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a big problem I have with the whole thing. I wonder if you're listening and you got a free pass also, do let me know on what basis, because I'm very interested to see on what basis they were kind of deciding as to who got a free pass or who didn't. Obviously, we review things. I will say straight up, and I know Fiona will say, even though she got a free pass, that does not in any way cloud our review.
It doesn't, and actually I have a million reports from friends, colleagues, and so on. So what I wanted to do today is not really talk just about what I felt about it, but what everyone else has been saying too. And quite frankly, I would have paid anyway. I wouldn't have paid probably to go for 3 or 4 days, but I would certainly have paid nonetheless. So, shall I kick off with the one thing that I think, if you did pay that much, and even if you did not pay that much, one thing that they've got to get right for next year is it's got to be more comfortable in terms of seating, cafes, bars, coffee shops, that kind of thing. If you're paying 32 quid for a day ticket, that you want to be able to go spend several hours. You want to look around, you want to meet people, you want to talk, you want to maybe have lunch. And the first thing that I have been complaining a lot to everyone about is that no, not a pleasant place to sit down, have a cup of tea or a coffee or a drink or sit and chat to people. Um, the different stands and cafes don't really work at Olympia. However, that's one point. Should we start at the beginning?
Well, we
Uh,
can, but I just want to pick up on that thing because when you said to me a number of months ago that it was moving to Olympia, a building that I know pretty well from before it was renovated, and which I've been visiting for various things since the 1970s. It is a big, cold warehouse of a place with a concrete floor, and really not a comfortable place to go. So I was always somewhat dubious about it. So it's very interesting, the move from Somerset House, which does have a little bit more comfort around it, to
Well,
Olympia.
yes, but I have been to plenty of other things in Olympia in recent years where the catering is better, quite frankly. Top Drawer, which is an industry event that goes on there twice a year, I think. There's loads of cafes, loads of bars, loads of places to sit and meet people and just hang around and talk to people. Photo London missed that. Now, I have to say, not everybody found that a problem. I did talk to plenty of people who were like, yeah, no, it's fine. I don't really mind. But most of the conversations I had were standing with friends. And, if you're standing with somebody who you haven't seen for ages and ages, you want to be able to, stand there and chat to them for half an hour. And after the first 25 minutes, you're like, I really need to sit down. So
I think there's a combination here, isn't there? We're always talking about merchant comfort, you and I, but I
yes.
do think it is part of the experience. So it could be, oh, you old people are always complaining, but I don't think it's an unrealistic expectation.
No, no, exactly. And when I went on the preview day, I took a student, a recent graduate. And so she's not an old person and she doesn't complain. But on the other hand, we spent such a long time walking around and then talking to people and meeting people and introducing her to people and showing work to people. And it just wasn't designed so that people could think I've spent however much money I've spent to have a really lovely day. It was like, okay, I must go to the next place and go to the next place and go to the next place. Like I say, I complain about it a lot in terms of comfort, but I think if in our increasingly digital world, physical experiences have to be got right because if they're not right, everyone's going to stay home and just look at things online. They're just not going to go.
I agree. Okay, we better talk about some photography, hadn't we?
Well, we should. Well, let's talk. Well, we better talk a bit more about the venue and everything else about it because I know you're dissing the venue, but the venue was great, and most people love the venue. Hang on a sec. Me, my pick some notes here. Various people. Several people said it reminded them, including reminded me as well, of Paris Photo and the Grand Palais.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, it's a similar kind of lighting and age building, isn't it?
Exactly, exactly. It's that kind of like giant purpose-built exhibition hall kind of vibe. But that was good. That was absolutely fine. Um, uh, Somebody who works in photography festivals said that she felt it felt more serious. It felt that the gallery spaces were more business-like. It feels more like a fair than a festival, she said. And she thought this is a very good thing for the people who were showing, for the gallerists themselves. So I spoke obviously to lots of gallerists, most of whom were very positive, some of whom really loved it. One or two of whom were sort of reserving judgment, certainly at the beginning. The word democratic was used many times, and I think part of that was in in Somerset House. Sometimes you're in a corridor, sometimes you're in a giant room, sometimes you're in a small room, sometimes you've got the sun streaming in, sometimes you're in the darkness. Whereas in Olympia, it's this huge white space, and it's very bright. Um, but it does feel like everybody's got the same kind of resources and everything is presented in a similar fashion. Everything's got the same white walls, unless you paint them yourself. Um, and that feels democratic, but everyone was pleased with that,
But
especially
to me,
visitors.
but to me, it looked a little bit like a big degree show.
Uh, oh,
Good work. No, I'm not talking about the work on the walls, but just the way in which it was set out.
well, not to diss Somerset House any more than I absolutely have to, but we could touch on Sony World Photo at this point.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was an absolute disgrace, wasn't it?
I That was the last photo show that I saw at Somerset House. That was 2 months ago now, and I took photographs. I went back there, and I paid twice to go back there simply because the first time I went with a mutual photography friend of ours, he and I were both like, "This is dreadful," and I came back and thought, "Was it that dreadful? Were we just in a bad mood?" And it was. So talk about photography degree showed, things were at that exhibition, things were being tacked to the wall. They were being glued to the wall. They were being held in with pins, and they were not lined up together. They were that it was surreally amateurish, and it was very disrespectful of the art. Um, so while you may think from where you were looking that it looked like a degree show, nah, the word was look more serious, more businesslike, um, a lot more serious about the art and respectful of the art. We had that. Um, Someone was saying, a mutual friend, the way the work was displayed, the accessibility was very good. So the thing again that's about Somerset House is, you've got these little rooms and corridors and steps and things. Once you get into Olympia, that's it. You have a big, bright space. Yeah, somebody pointed at several wheelchairs, which is not something you saw often there at Somerset House. The lifts work, all that kind of stuff. So you get there, you get to the building, and it's huge. It's very bright. I was kind of wondering if it would get uncomfortably hot or anything, but it didn't seem to. Nobody complained about that. Obviously, as another of our photographer friends pointed out to me, it was built in a time before air conditioning. It was built at a time when people catered for these kind of things. So that all worked. It was very bright. Um, I'm wondering whether to digress into something negative at this point.
Well, no, by all means. I mean, digress away.
So, somebody, I have, as I said, anonymized most of our comments here because everyone's very happy to chat. But I didn't write everybody's comments down, so I don't want to misquote anyone. But some are on my Instagram feed comments. Julia Fullerton Batten. So I'll read out what Julia said because she wrote it. She said it's much easier to navigate around, more space for the galleries, feels like an exhibition space. She said, however, yesterday I was there from midday to closing time and we missed somewhere to hang out. She's pointed out it's kind of it's easy to get to from where she is in West London, but it's not the nicest area of London. And same for me, I was able to walk. I could walk half an hour down. But the trouble is when you get to Olympia, you've got Hammersmith 10 minutes one way, you've got Kensington High Street 10 minutes the other way. But if you have kind of met some friends and you've gone, oh, there's no bars in here, we want to go for a drink, it's like, okay, where do we go? So this is an issue. This is a real issue.
Yeah, I mean, it's taken us back to that idea of kind of the experience again. But I think Julia is a really good person to make a comment because she is very experienced of going to international fairs and showing her work and so forth. So, I take that on board. But I do think, and we've still yet to talk about the photography, but I do see it personally as a photo supermarket. Um, and I know that there are some good talks that surround it. But in general, it's there like any kind of commercial show like that. It's there to sell stuff. And I think there's a bit of
It,
a clash there between the experience that we want and the experience that people want who just want to sell stuff.
well, yeah. Let me read a couple more comments. Again, Nick Turpin put this on my Instagram. Lovely to see Nick there as well. He said it's a great venue for exhibitors. It's easy to navigate, but there's no social scene anymore. No bar to meet up with colleagues and friends. I used to love Somerset House Terrace for that. And Mark Wilson, same thing. He said, as Nick says, easier to see the work, but it's lost a part of its soul in the move. And Mark was pointing out, from my point of view, the social aspect, the networking bit has gone, and that's an important part of when you're making book sales, for instance, in the long run, for photography books and so on. So you can still see people, you can still chat, but it's more by accident. And when you're on the way somewhere, and that was 100% what I found because there were quite a few people who I had agreed and arranged to meet, but then you get there and like, I'm not quite sure where we're going to meet. But I met tons and tons of friends just kind of like going from one end to the other. I did talk to a very well-established older photography book publisher who said he misses Somerset House because he feels that the soul is kind of lost
Mm, mm.
when you go to Olympia.
I agree. I agree with that. I think that is the case, but I think that there is a dichotomy, and when we do finally talk about the photography, the kind of photography that was being shown, I think, is very indicative of what the people who are paying for the stands are there for, and what the people who are going as photographers are there for. And I think it's two completely different things. And years ago, I wrote an article about putting on a festival for photography, which was like Glastonbury, where
Mm.
you had food trucks, you had talks, you had drinks. It was that social side was covered. And we don't have that in photography. Photo London, Paris Photo are hardcore selling spaces for big prints for big money.
Well, interestingly, the student who I brought along, who was great, she loved it. She was very positive. She had never been to anything quite like this before, and she was really good at net. She was excellent to chat. She made the most of it. But she said to me as we were walking along at one point, "So it's all about selling photography." And I actually kind of went, "Yeah, it is actually." Because in the past, the thing about Somerset House is it doesn't necessarily all feel like selling photography, which is not too great for the people whose job is to sell photography. So you've got to get that balance. Um, and this really feels, Olympia Reel feels more like that's it. That's what it's for, which is what Paris Photo is very clearly all about. It is about selling the work. I went, one of a friend who I went around, a photographer friend who's our kind of era. Um, he was saying he was thinking about it as we walked around, and he said he was kind of encouraged by what he was looking at in that it shows people want to put nice pictures on their walls. And he said because this is what some of us spent our careers doing. And he said because I was saying I know there's a lot of 80s stuff um uh at the moment. And he pointed out, he said, what is he said, a lot of photographers who were, early in their careers and at that time, um, they're now in their like late 60s, they're 70s and so on, and they have an archive. And our friend was saying, we photographers were always told that our archives would keep us, when we got old, when we retired. But of course, that didn't happen because editorial died, syndication died. If you were a photographer who was making great work in the 80s and 90s, you're not really selling much of it these days unless you're making a nice print with a nice gallery and getting people to buy pictures from you.
Yeah, well, that's
So
completely it, isn't it? I mean, I noticed one of the big
yeah.
kind of bodies of work was the Stephen Meisel
Uh,
Vogue London pictures, which is obviously very close to home for both of us.
mhm,
Because I remember being in the building when the chaos was going on, and
mhm.
everybody was trying to make the pictures by running all over London, so it was complete chaos. But now
So,
they're being sold as big prints.
well, yeah, I have quite a lot to say about that one because obviously I thought, oh, great, I want to see these. These are terrific. I love that was a fabulous shoot. I want to see these, and I love the fact that they're big. And you can, so they're up on the sort of not mezzanine on the balcony at one end of the building, and you can kind of like see them from 200 yards away, the far end of the building. Um, my maths might not be right, but anyway, you can see them from a mile away, and they look good. Although, as several people pointed out, um, the impact is great, but the after that, the framing is they're framed in such a way that sometimes all you can see is reflections, because it's kind of that's just all you could see. And as someone said, if you're going to spend however much money it is on a print like this, you should be able to see the photograph in the glass. You should be able to pay for, less reflective glass. And I wandered around and I thought, I love to see these. But those of us who were doing sort of what would you buy, what would you take home with you, were going, well, maybe you get one of them myself if you had one of those kind of like giant, um, um, you know, ateliers, a big old kind of like place in Docklands, which is now kind of like around the corner from me here, in West London. You want a big piece of art to fill up a big wall. I would rather have one of the Peter Lindberghs, which Larry Gagosian has, or an Avedon, which Larry Gagosian has. But somebody who went, who is more of a neutral person, said some things, including he said the Mizell kind of works because you know who the people are, but he says the people are interchangeable. And I thought, actually, it's Stella and Bella and Hamish and Plum. And frankly, yeah, they are
Yeah, but
kind of,
but you say people know them. They don't know them. We know them because we're very much part of that world of the bright young things of London in the mid 90s
yes,
around Condé Nast. So yes, we do know them.
yes.
However, we don't know them like Twiggy was known or Michael
Uh,
Caine or all that kind of Bailey take on it. And it was kind of a reinvention of that. I mean, it was
And
just a
Twiggy,
magazine story, just a fashion story, is all
exactly.
it
It was
was.
just a fashion story. It was just a fashion story. And Twiggy is in that shoot, by the way. Nice
Yes, she
picture.
is.
Twiggy. But yeah, my neutral observer said the people are so interchangeable. And my neutral observer didn't know who they were, but he doesn't really care. And he also thinks that what makes photography, what made a lot of it work was he said everyone's looking for a narrative. So when you get, and he's saying when you get to the top of the tree, like Stephen Meisel, you might define your era, but it doesn't. I'm not sure you've got made great art, and the people are so interchangeable, and people are looking for a story. Um, and as you just said, a couple of other of us were people were saying, if you saw, they work because they're huge, but back in the day they worked because they were on the pages of Vogue. Now, if you just kind of had them, 5-4 postcard side or something, is it great art? Nah, it's just nice fashion photos.
They were fashion photos of a shallow time in a shallow way, as far as I'm concerned.
Which
And
possibly means why they're kind of very resonant
well,
now.
exactly. But I have no issue with shallow. I'm the prince of shallow. However,
There's a place for shallow. We love shallow sometimes.
was there
Let me
anything
say
good? Was there anything good that you really liked?
tons of stuff.
Well, come on, let's get on to the good stuff.
All right. And honestly, even though we sound like we're saying negative things here, um, the overall impression, everyone was pleased with it. I was pleased with it. It's an improvement on Somerset House, apart from the things that it's not an improvement on. But one of the things that I find really useful about things like this and was very pleased to see at Photo London is it's not so much seeing the cool and trendy and the new stuff, but being exposed to old art that you might not be aware of. In my case, I was not aware of. So, for instance, there was some lovely work by Tom Wood,
Hmm.
which he had made in the 1970s when he was still a student.
Yeah,
And
there's been a lot of talk about this Tom Wood work as being particular. I mean, a lot of people really liked it.
mm, It was it was so walking around with one of my photographer friends, and we were both going, I like that one, I like that one, I like that one. And then he kind of we walked away and he said, I'm not sure though, is it that great? So I actually went back to ask her for information. And there was no information. So I actually had to get someone from the gallery to go off to another part of the building, find find a handout and bring back the handout, which I'm just reaching for here. Where did I put the handout? It's somewhere. I don't know where it is. But it turns out, yes, that they were works that he made when he was a student at Leicester Poly, I think it was. So it was really interesting when you got a bit more context, but they were still really nice pieces. I like seeing that. I really loved the work of Ute Mahler. I wasn't aware of Ute Mahler and her husband, Werner Mahler. And this was, where was this? This was Gallery Peter Sillum. So this is the kind of thing you do not see normally in galleries in London, because why would you? So um, she was born in 1949. So she did black and white fashion photography in East Germany, before before the fall of communism and so on. She studied in Leipzig. It's very East German, but her fashion photography is lovely. It's really great 1970s kind of style. And then she and her husband, 2008 to 2010, they did a series of pictures called Mona Lisas of the Suburbs. And they're just lovely black and white pictures of girls in places like Reykjavik and Liverpool and where have you. And in all honesty, if I had a choice between a Stephen Meisel picture of lovely Plum Sykes and an Ute and Werner Mahler picture of a Mona Lisa from Genoa or wherever, I go for the Mona Lisas. They've got so much soul to them.
Yeah, me too. I
So
completely agree
these
with you.
these were lovely, and I was just looking up the website this morning, thinking I'm going to put that in the over to you to put in the show links. Her website is obviously in German, but it's really interesting discovery. And the other thing that I discovered, which I should have known about, but haven't been to the Deutsche Börse yet, but I will go, is Jane Evelyn Atwood. So she is American, but lives in France. She born 1947. And the piece of work or the project that was submitted for this year's Deutsche Börse, she's a finalist. She didn't win, but she's one of the nominees. And the work was shot in the 1990s, documenting the experience of women in the American prison system. She documented 40 prisons. And I just, this is one of those occasions where you just walk and go, oh my God, what am I looking at? Wow. And they also had stuff like she did a book on trans sex workers in Paris in like the 80s or 90s. She did, there are pictures by her of young women in juvenile delinquent centers in Ryazan in 1990 in Russia. And then there's a portrait of James Baldwin and his brother, which is just gorgeous. She is amazing. So these are kind of people that, again, I would have discovered her at the Deutsche Börse Prize, but to have a lot more background, to see more of her books and so on and so forth, was the kind of thing that you want to go to. That's the kind of thing you want to find at a festival, at a fair rather, at a photography fair.
So there's a sense of discovery there, but did you feel that I was talking to Bill Shapiro recently, and he'd been at iPad in New York,
Yeah.
and he commented that he felt a little bit like you, really, that there was a little bit more of a positive atmosphere than there had been in previous years, a little bit more optimism. However, his big kind of takeaway was that there was a lot less of that self-absorbed work being produced, that constant internal reflection, that we've seen for a long time. So are you feeling the same coming out of Photo London? Because what you seem to be talking about to me are prints that will look very nice on the wall, as you said.
Well, that is as I mentioned earlier, one of our friends was pointing out that as a photographer, it's quite nice. Nice prints on walls. I could do that. Um, I think there's a lot of that because obviously it sells, and we're in a really difficult time at the moment. You can't be putting up too much stuff going, I hope this sells. I hope somebody's going to like it. It's expensive to, whatever about how much it costs to go to Photo London. It's bloody expensive, as far as I'm aware,
I spoke,
to to
yeah, I
exhibit
spoke
there.
exactly. I spoke to a dealer a year or so ago who told me that it's a complete loss leader, Photo London.
Yeah.
There is no way that they make their money back by the
Yeah.
time they've got here, got the hotels, taken the space and everything else that involves.
Yeah, so there's all that, but I think, and yes, and some people were wondering, so what is it? We were talking about, do you think people actually buy and sell here? And my impression is that not so much, but it's a good way for people who might buy to sort of see a lot of stuff at the same time, which again brings me back to my bugbear about nowhere to sit. However, a friend who is better connected than I am said that the collector's lounge is very nice.
Oh, okay. So there is a collector's lounge, not for
There
the
is, oh yeah, there's the collector's lounge, and there are a couple of very nice, rather more expensive restauranty type things. There just isn't anywhere for somebody who wants to sit and chat with friends and so on. Two other things I should talk about with Photo London, though. One is the talks. You mentioned the talks earlier. So I went to two of the talks. I went to Jill Furmanovsky talking about the book that she's done with Noel Gallagher, the Oasis book, and I went to Harry Gruyaert talking with David Campney. And I have to say, not desperately, not somewhat underwhelming. In fact, not, let me just be completely honest here. I couldn't hear, I couldn't see. I was in the third row. I think I was in the second row for Jill, so I could see and I could hear some of what she's doing. But what it is that they're kind of a small room. And so you have chairs, but the speakers are on the same level as the audience, which means that nobody can see the speakers beyond the first or second row, which is silly. Why can't you just have a little dais, a little raised area so people can see Harry Gruyer, see Jill Furmanov, see all these people? Um, sorry, am I getting hysterical now?
No, you're not. You're not at all. You're bringing a real life perspective to these things, and that's the point of what we do with these conversations. You know, if you did, I mean, the social media is full at the minute, with Photo London stuff. If you want to see what was going on and what it looked like, it's easy to do so.
Yeah.
What no one is really saying is what you're saying, which is giving a real sense of the experience. And I have to say, because I live in Cheltenham, and we have the Cheltenham Literary Festival every year, and it's full of people who come and they give talks and what have you. And it's usually 15 to 25 pounds a talk. And I've stopped going because the talks are just so bland and so boring, and nobody's saying anything interesting because it's all so corporate. And
Yeah.
I just wonder if, you know, for me, Photo London is a corporate event. There's good things, sure, but it's a corporate event. And you've got all these people going who are not corporate people, but they
Well,
don't seem to be dealing with things very well.
Well, I mean, I would imagine you could probably get a for full balance, you probably need to get a collector to talk about it and see what they think. But just to finish off about the talks, the thing is, they're actually very cheap. They're only a tenner, but at the same, so I thought that was excellent. But at
Well,
the
that's,
same
that's a
time,
lot of money if you can't see them or hear anything.
it's a lot of, it's so frustrating when you can't see or hear. Um, and so I found that was very irritating. And again, just one of those things like if you're charging people 30 quid to come for a day, if you're charging a student, 24 pounds or whatever I said it was for a student to get the opportunity to come and listen to the greats of photography, to see the greats of photography, they should be able to hear the greats of photography. And honestly, how hard can it be to put a little platform in there? So I was very underwhelmed by the talks, but there you go, that's me. In fact, the things that I found, and I think a lot of us who visited who are like not gallerists and who are not collectors, things that we found exciting were things like Joel Meyerowitz was there just chatting, just being filmed, and perfectly happy to have people standing around going, "Oh my God, that's Joel Meyerowitz, he's wonderful." Mason Harriman was there and happy to talk to people. Lo I saw Tony McGee, who I haven't seen for ages and ages, and I was like, "Are you Tony McGee? Because you haven't changed at all in 30 years." Pete Bailey was there, Nadav Kanda was there, so it was a bit of a thrill for lots of us to see people, and it was also really, really fun to see, just friends and photographers I haven't worked with for years, friends I only see once in a while. We had sort of various little impromptu get-togethers for like, oh, and there were some nice book signings. I haven't mentioned the books yet. The books, there's a lovely publishing space, very, very nice. On the whole, I think people who were there were very pleased with it. But shall we move on to Peckham 24?
Yeah, please do.
Because
Because that's a bit of a yin and a yang there, isn't there, between the two events? Do you want to just
yes,
explain what Peckham
exactly.
24 is to
I do
people who
indeed.
aren't
All right.
aware?
So first of all, Peckham 24 is having spent, hours and days in my West London hood, dodging the hailstones, walking up and down to Olympia. I I spent Sunday going all the way across the other side of town for Peckham 24. So Peckham 24 is the 10th anniversary of a pop-up, 10 years since Peckham 24 started life as a pop-up on the fringe of Photo London weekend. It's a labor of love involving over 200 talented artists, curators, and collaborators. And they've grown the festival from the original 24-hour format into an event that's a fixture. It's 3 days. So it was on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Um, and and so it's in a very nice this year. It was in a nice little sort of um arts center, but arts courtyard, if you like, a gallery quarter in Peckham Rye, which is lovely. So it's kind of like the Truman Brewery, if you're familiar with that kind of. There's places like this in lots of parts of the UK these days. Little independent gallery, little craft bars, lots of cool little shops selling little cute stuff. So
Expensive stuff for hipsters.
I think they're called millennials nowadays and Gen
Oh,
Z
okay.
hipsters.
I'm not
No,
saying that in a derogatory way.
no, I neither am I was blown away. Okay, I was blown away. So I went down to Peckham on Sunday at the urging of various friends of ours who are not millennials or Gen Z, plus at the invitation of a couple of millennials and Gen Zs as well. And what it was some exhibitions, not a lot of exhibitions, but the main exhibition that I saw was terrific. And some talks. And the talk that I went to yesterday afternoon was with Mark Duffy and Gordon MacDonald, who were two artists, two photographers talking about politics in their work. And it was great. You could hear, you could see, you could get involved. It was interactive and it was free. And I just thought, this is how I want my talks to be, where you really hear and see. Well, and it was a fun talk. It was really interesting. But the absolute mind-blowing thing at Peckham 24 is the books. They have a huge book fair. It's called a bigger book fair. And whereas at Photo London, most of the books are art books with, the usual array of excellent art publishers. Peckham is a lot of self-publishing stuff, a lot of collectives, a lot of zines, and the energy is just amazing, and the work is beautiful, and the sheer variety and commitment was so energizing. And also exhausting, but it was wonderful. It was really great. It was terrific to have, as you say, the yin and the yang between how corporate and big and commercial Photo London is. And I don't think corporate big or commercial is bad, but how totally crafty and personal and local Peckham is.
Yeah, I mean, BOP down in Bristol, which I go to each year, which is Books on Publishing, which was initially set up by Martin Parr, has a similar vibe to Peckham 24. And I think it's much more about the photographers. It's about, it has a similar kind of social thing of meeting up and what have you. Um, but I think it's very much about expectation, isn't it? I think if
It,
you're going to pay 30 quid to go to Photo London, you've got to know what you're going to see. I mean, one of the arguments always has been about photo, Paris photo, it has been the quality of the prints being poor. And that it's very
yeah.
much kind of wallpaper, photographic wallpaper, really.
Yeah, I thought things looked basically very I thought things basically looked terrific at Photo London. But also another thing about Photo London is it's huge. It is huge. I mean, I'm saying Peckham, the book fair is huge, but Photo London is massive. I got to, like lunchtime on Saturday, and I was going, I've seen one book by now. I've just been so busy talking to people and
Yeah.
going around and chatting and looking and going back and forth that it's easy to miss a lot. So again, as you say, when you're paying this much money, you have to kind of go, what am I actually going to see, and am I going to make sure that I have enough time to discover things as well? Um, and when we did discover things, it was really interesting, but you have to put a bit of time into discovering things. Um, and you have to kind of stand there and ask people about their process or ask the galleries about their process and go deep into how people are doing things. So again, you have to be able to give the time and therefore you should be having a pleasant experience while you are giving the time. I mean, in Peckham, the exhibition, a group exhibition with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 13, 12 or 13 photographers, and it was much more experimental. It was a small space. It was a group show. It was very experimental, but I loved it. It was young photographers, and actually they weren't all young, but there were photographers who were pushing what photography. They weren't just doing a beautiful picture that's going to look good on your wall. They're doing installations. They're doing um, reflective pieces. They're doing questioning photography, which we need. And
Yeah,
that, and it was free.
yeah, which is also great because the people involved in it are not in it for the money,
Exactly.
and I think this is really probably where this episode kind of splits in two. It's kind of photography for the money and then photography for the love. And you kind of you get a better experience when it's people doing it for the love of it than people just doing it for the money of it. It can still be good, but it's
Yeah.
a different kind of a thing.
It depends what you mean by a good experience. I think you have to, like you were saying, like earlier, Grant, you have to know and be prepared for you have to manage your expectations. So there would be no point in going to Peckham thinking I'm going to spend half an hour, I'm going to see something amazing, and I'm going to, buy something. It just doesn't work like that. At the same time, you could, in theory, if you're loaded, go to Photo London, go half an hour. I've got 4 galleries, 3 galleries, 4 galleries to go and see. I know I'll find something there that I can put on the wall of my CEO suite, of my C suite, or my hotel lobby, or whatever it is, and I'll find something amazing, and it'll cost me, between 2 and 20 grand.
Mm,
Everything is there. I would just say though that I do want to kind of make it clear that despite the quibbles and so on, and there were more quibbles. Somebody said it was bigger in many ways, this photo London, bigger and in many ways more impressive, but I got less from it for some reason. Now, I personally think it's the first year of Photo London at Olympia. They have they need to kind of take some comments on board and make it more comfortable, I would say, as an experience, and think about what they're charging people that much money for. Especially in the wilds of Brook Green, West Hammersmith, West Kensington. But on the whole, not to diss Photo London, people are happier on the whole with it, the ones I spoke to.
I think it's great that we have it, and I suppose we just want it to be as good as it possibly can be. Um, it's always good, from my perspective, when photography is shared. And the moment you put a price on the door, you're not sharing it. There's a price for admission. And I always put myself, and I'm sure you do as well, as a 16, 17, 18 year old, when you used to be able to just walk in and see things for free
Yeah.
and for exhibitions. And I think that actually, if they did a students go free, for example, that would not hurt them. It would not cost them a great deal, but it would be hugely beneficial to the medium which they're trying to make money out of. Because otherwise, there's no future. You're just going to be selling old stuff.
Well, there is this. I think what you're saying though does beg the question of who wants the students to go free? Because I think the thing is that gallerists want people to go spend money. Students are not going to spend money. On the other hand, yes, students need to see it because we're going to have a future. On the third hand, you know, you can go to any of these galleries and see the work for free, but obviously not the galleries in Leipzig and the galleries in Munich and the galleries in Sao Paulo, because we can't, that's what this is. The good thing about this is that you can see things here that you'd have to leave the country to see otherwise. I don't know. There's no perfect solution, but I think it's heading in the right direction.
Yeah, it seems to be what I've heard, apart from this pricing thing. I think what we need to do is hear from listeners. If you went, let me know, let Fee know exactly what you thought. Are we right? Are we wrong? Are we mad? Are we expecting too much? Are we just grumpy old people? I don't know. You need to let us know as to whether or not you think that are quite strongly held beliefs. And I know I'm putting these forward on the basis of somebody who didn't go, but I can't go to everything, and I've been to a lot of stuff in my time. Okay, Sophie, how do people get hold of you and share their views?
They get hold of me mostly Instagram these days, please. I am on Threads. I am at the Art Dictator, but I've posted quite a lot from Photo London and from Peckham 24 over the last couple of days on Instagram, and I would love people to comment there,
That
please.
would be great. And of course, everything we've spoken about in this episode will be in the show notes, so you can follow up on that. And also, we'll put the links to the websites for Peckham 24 and
Yes.
also for Photo London, so you can get a bigger picture. Fee, thank you so much once again for putting in the hard yards on our behalf.
Well, I could I just say thank you very much to everybody who very enthusiastically shared their opinions in person over the last few days, and keep sharing the opinions. Thank you very, very much, Grant.
Thank you, and see you next month.